सबसे ज्यादा पूछा जाने वाला सवाल है कि पैसा डबल करने का कोई स्कीम बताओ।
जब मैं सिक्स क्लास में था, एक बार एक मेरा बड़ा अच्छा दोस्त था, ही यूज्ड टू टेल मी, वरुण, आई विल टेक यू टू प्ले क्रिकेट, लेकिन रिटर्न में ना आप मुझे कैंटीन से एक्स्ट्रा एक बर्गर खरीदो। तो मैंने जाके मेरे प्रोफेसर से पूछा, सर पैसा डबल करने का कोई तरीका है क्या, प्लीज़ मुझे बताओ, मुझे ना अभी अपना पैसा डबल करना है। तो उसने मुझे बड़ा अच्छा आंसर दिया, ये में ब्रिलियंट आंसर, एंड आई थिंक हिज आंसर स्टक टू माई माइंड।
वेलकम गो वेंचर पॉडकास्ट के सीजन 2 पे। मैं प्रीतेश कुमार, आपका होस्ट एंड को फाउंडर ऑफ फंक्शन। मैंने बहुत सारी कंपनीज बनाई हैं, रेज करा है कैपिटल, बर्न करा है कैपिटल एंड स्टार्टअप स्टार्ट भी करे हैं। फेल हुआ हूँ, लर्न किया है, सक्सीड भी किया है एट ऑलमोस्ट एवरीथिंग दैट द स्टार्टअप एंड बिजनेस वर्ल्ड कैन ऑफर। हेंस गो वेंचर पॉडकास्ट एक फ्रेंडली रिमाइंडर है उन सभी हैक्स एंड स्ट्रेटजीज के लिए जो जरूरी हैं ग्रो करने के लिए and अपने ड्रीम्स को अचीव करने के लिए। Lastly, join our group in the description to share stuff and startup networking with like-minded folks. आज हम बात करेंगे, we're talking to वरुण श्रीधर, CEO of Paytm Money. लास्ट 3 साल में ना, अगर देखोगे आप तो स्टॉक मार्केट में ना आम जनता जो रिटेल इन्वेस्टर बोलते हैं उनका पार्टिसिपेशन ना बहुत मैसिवली ग्रो हुआ है। लास्ट 3 साल में 5 गुना हुए हैं डीमैट अकाउंट्स इंडिया में। तो हम बात करेंगे पेटीएम मनी के सीईओ से कि रिच लोग अपना पैसा कैसे इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, क्या पैटर्न्स हैं इसके, फोमो से कैसे बचे इसमें। लेट्स गो। बट यस, बिफोर वी बिगिन आई वांट टू थैंक ऑल ऑफ आवर लिसनर्स फॉर ऑल द लव, messages and comments on the podcast and our Instagram channel. Let's go. Hey Varun, thank you for coming on the podcast.
थैंक यू प्रितेश, थैंक यू, इट्स प्लेजर टू बी हियर, एंड अच्छा लग रहा है आप लोगों के साथ में। नाइस टू बी विद यू।
वरुण से मैंने आपके लिए ना एक क्विक सेट ऑफ 2-3 क्वेश्चंस प्रिपेयर करे हैं जिसके साथ स्टार्ट करेंगे हम। इफ यू रेडी देन लेट्स स्टार्ट। सो
यस
वरुण,
प्लीज गो फॉर
फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन जो सबसे कॉमन क्वेश्चन आता है, विच इज म्यूचुअल फंड्स सेफ हैं कि नहीं?
इट। लाइफ में क्या सड़क पे चलना सही है, क्या बीच में स्विमिंग करना सही है, क्या ज़िंदगी जीना सही है, राइट? लाइक यू नो एवरीथिंग इन लाइफ, देर इज यू नो देर इज लाइफ, एंड लाइफ इज consequence of choices you make. Similarly for MF, is mutual fund safe? It is safer than many other things. It is equally complex. If you get it wrong, you get it really wrong. But I think amongst all the investment instruments out there, amongst all the options out there, I really feel that SIP sahi hai. If you ask me, I would always say SIP karo, think long term, think for decades together, years together, months together. As long as you're doing that, I think it's a good option. So for me, mutual funds is the safer option out there amongst many others. And I would do SIP to get it going, because I fundamentally believe that most people want to live life एंड वो पैसा नहीं मैनेज करना चाहते यार। मतलब मैनेजिंग मनी इज द मोस्ट बोरिंग थिंग इन लाइफ टू डू, राइट? सो द आइडियल सिचुएशन इज यू गिव द मनी एंड somebody else manages it for you. Also managing money in today's time requires a lot of knowledge. So giving your precious time to yourself and letting somebody else do what they are good at and what they deserve, what they are professionally trained for, is basically a mutual fund. So I always believe that it's good to do mutual funds, and SIP is best. So is it 100% safe? There's no 100% safety. At the end, it's an equity product that could be dead, that could be overnight, right? But at the end of it, there is an inherent risk. But the fact that a professional manages it, as long as you think long term, I think it's a better option out there than most other things.
I think कोई मनी सेफ नहीं है अभी तो, with US also on the verge of maybe they will default. कोई मनी सेफ नहीं है, so I think definitely investment options are the way to go. But एक और क्वेश्चन, कॉमन क्वेश्चन आता है वरुण, which is म्यूचुअल फंड्स या स्टॉक्स वर्सेस से रियल एस्टेट, what to choose?
My answer. So I'll tell you my own example, because I think it's better to tell my story. I believe a lot in real estate, right? So I have real estate. I have one home, one apartment on rent, and I'm building a second one as we speak. Okay, so I'm going to be having three real estate investments. I also do stocks. I also do mutual funds. I also do bonds. I also do ETF, right? So I think a lot of people are thinking either or. राइट नाउ आई विल गो बैक टू फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल। मैं थोड़ा सा पीछे जाता हूँ। हम लाइफ क्यों जीते हैं? वी लिव बिकॉज वी वांट टू एंजॉय, वी वांट टू स्माइल, वी वांट टू हैव अ ग्रेट फैमिली, वी वांट टू हैव फन। अगर कोई मुझे बोलेगा कि मैं लाइफ लॉन्ग रेंटेड हाउस में रहना चाहता हूँ और मेरे पास बहुत सारा पैसा है, मेरे बैंक अकाउंट में एसआईपी है, और मैं एक छोटे से 1 बेडरूम में रह रहा हूँ, फॉर एग्जांपल आप बैंगलोर में रहते हो, तो मैं बोलूँगा यार, व्हाट्स द पर्पस ऑफ यू मेकिंग सो मच मनी? What is the purpose of living life, right? The idea of life is to have a great home, have a great family, have great fun. So for me, your first real estate, or maybe even your second one, depending on how you're looking at life, is an important step forward. तो एक तो अपना पहला घर, उसकी satisfaction, like I'm building a nice house right now, and I believe I'm not doing that. Will the ROI be better than an SIP or a stock? I'm doing it because at the end I want to sit on my sofa, see TV the way I want to, and feel happy that I've lived life. I'm 43 and I enjoy it. I think nothing can compare to that smile on your face deep inside your mind, and you do it for yourself, right? So, pehli cheez, I think we must not make it either or. It's a question of individual circumstance. Now, then, presuming you have this first house, are you going to build 10 houses, 12 houses? I think that's where the debate starts. Because if you already are settled, happy with what you have as real estate, then I think the next question is, अच्छा मेरे पास ये हो गया है, SIP versus equity versus MF versus bond versus real estate. I think their real estate becomes a tougher investment because most people look at property prices and say it'll all appreciate forever. Remember, apartments don't appreciate forever. Then, if you get rental income, you pay taxes. Then you have to have a cost of managing those tenants. Then there's a cost of refurbishing. So I run an apartment in Bangalore. One of my tenants is there. Every 2 years, there is a cost going into it. Right? I have to pay brokerage. There's a bunch of problems. वो सब नहीं होता अगर आप SIP करते हो तो. So I think there's a debate, but I don't think it's an either or. यार सबसे पहले अपनी life आप, why do we work hard to enjoy and have a smile and do it? So if you're not happy with your current house, then having a new house is important, right? You can't have 5 crores in assets and be living in a 1 bedroom house. So yeah, so you figure out आपके लिए क्या जरूरी है. But if you're happy with real estate, I think it's a tough case that real estate makes more money than a simple SIP or an equity investment.
या थैंक यू वरुण आई थिंक दैट समराइज लॉट रियल स्टेट और स्टॉक्स के बीच में ना बहुत कंफ्यूजन रहता है लोगों को बट मैं आपसे ना वरुण एक सवाल पूछता हूँ जो ना सबसे ज्यादा पूछा जाता है शायद स्टॉक मार्केट में इन जनरल शायद फाइनेंशियल मार्केट में भी इन जनरल कि सबसे ज्यादा पूछा जाने वाला सवाल है कि पैसा डबल करने का कोई स्कीम बताओ since you come from
है ना.
since you are heading Paytm Money I know there's no right answer to it but I would love to hear from you पैसा डबल करने का कोई स्कीम बताइए और
है ना. मैंने जब मैं 6th क्लास में था एक बार, तो मैंने किसी से जाके पूछा कि मेरे पापा पॉकेट मनी देते थे और मुझे ना बड़ा अच्छा लगता था. एक मेरा बड़ा अच्छा दोस्त था, ही यूज्ड टू टेल मी, वरुण आई विल टेक यू टू प्ले क्रिकेट, लेकिन रिटर्न में ना आप मुझे कैंटीन से एक्स्ट्रा एक बर्गर खरीद के दो. तो अब मुझे मेरा पैसा डबल करना था क्योंकि मेरे अलाउंस में उतना ही होता था. तो मैंने जाके मेरे प्रोफेसर से पूछा, सर पैसा डबल करने का कोई तरीका है क्या, प्लीज़ मुझे बताओ, मुझे ना अभी अपना पैसा डबल करना है. तो उसने मुझे बड़ा अच्छा आंसर दिया, ये में ब्रिलियंट आंसर, एंड आई थिंक हिज आंसर स्टक टू माई माइंड. ही सेड, वरुण आपकी हाइट कितनी है? मैंने कहा सर 4 फीट होगा. कहता आप कल 8 फीट के हो सकते हो? मैंने कहा नहीं सर. कहता मेरे पास है एक तरकीब आपको 8 फीट करने के लिए. तो मैंने कहा क्या सर? कहता जिस दिन आप वो तरकीब का आंसर ढूंढ लोगे उस दिन आपको अपना पैसा डबल करने का तरीका मिल जाएगा, राइट? और मैं उस दिन से ढूंढ रहा हूँ कि मैं कैसे लंबा हूँ, राइट? आई ओनली गॉन in another 10 years, I think, from 4 feet to 6 feet. So the answer is there is no, look, I think लोग कहते हैं ना कि पैसे में इट्स अ वेरी फनी ऑक्सीमोरॉन, या जो कहते हैं बहुत बड़ी डाइकोटोमी है, एक बहुत बड़ा एक इट्स अ वेरी बिग पजल दैट द रिचेस्ट इन्वेस्टर्स एक्चुअली, आप किसी वेरी वेरी रिच पर्सन से बात करोगे कि व्हाट इज द यील्ड ऑन द पोर्टफोलियो यू आर एक्सपेक्टिंग, दे विल से 10 to 12%. यू टॉक टू द यंगेस्ट पर्सन, ही विल आस्क यू दिस क्वेश्चन, मेरा पैसा डबल कर दो. बट एक्चुअली उल्टा होना चाहिए ना. एक्चुअली द गाय हु हैज अ लॉट ऑफ मनी, ही शुड बी विलिंग टू टेक मोर रिस्क. बट क्या होता है, बाय द टाइम यू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ मनी, यू रियलाइज दैट देर इज नो डबलिंग द मनी. Okay, there is a risk and reward. So I think the answer is, I always give three answers. A lot of people, आप बिल्कुल सही हो प्रीतेश, आपने मेरे से पूछ लिया, लेकिन बहुत सारे लोग हैं चलते चलते, सर मुझे ऐसी कुछ स्कीम बता दो पेटीएम मनी पे कि मैं आज पैसा डाल दूं और मेरा ना एक साल में कुछ तो अच्छा रिटर्न आ जाए. वो स्कीम मेरे पास है. उस स्कीम का आंसर है एजुकेशन. Right? I strongly am a believer that the best way to double your money, triple your money, or at least to protect your money and make more than inflation. Because I think the goal all of us should have is how to make more money than A, inflation, B, your bank account. As long as you're doing that, you're already better than 99% of India. Then Within the 1% of India, you want to be even better. That's a second goal. Now, to do that, I just think there are three very simple principles in life, Pritesh, जो मुझे लगता है मैंने अपनी लाइफ में फॉलो किया है एंड आई टेल ऑल माई इन्वेस्टर्स वी हैव मिलियंस ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स एट पेटीएम मनी मैं उनसे एक ही चीज़ बोलता हूँ हमेशा तीन चीज़ें करो सबसे पहली चीज़ लर्न फर्स्ट अनफॉर्चुनेटली हम इंडिया में डॉक्टर्स इंजीनियर्स चार्टर्ड अकाउंट जितने ब्रेन्स प्रोड्यूस करते हैं पीपल लाइक यू बट वी डोंट टीच पीपल हाउ टू डू अ 500 रुपी SIP right? It's the saddest part of, if you ask me, our education system in the whole world, not just India. So for me, please start spending 2 hours a week to learn about what you're going to invest. Step one. Step two, start small. I always believe, however rich you are or however poor you are, I met this guy whose personal wealth was 100 crores, and he said, "Varun, बताओ कौन सा प्रोडक्ट में इन्वेस्ट करना है?" मैंने कहा, "सर, आप ना सिर्फ 5,000 रुपये या 500 रुपये, जो भी आपकी लिमिट में हो, उससे ज़्यादा नहीं, उससे कम नहीं, 6 महीने के लिए हर महीने इन्वेस्ट करोगे, राइट?" ही सेड, "वरुण, वो तो मैं अभी कर देता हूँ ऐसे।" ऐसे नहीं, अभी नहीं करना है। आप 6 महीने के लिए हर महीने उतने पैसे इन्वेस्ट करोगे एंड यू विल नॉट इन्वेस्ट मोर। सो इफ यू आर वेरी सक्सेसफुल, यू नॉट बिकम विराट कोहली ओवरनाइट। If you're less successful, you've not become a burnt customer, but you take your time. So that's the second thing I will do. Invest not between 500 and 5,000. Choose one amount. So if you are young or you don't have money, choose 500. If you're older enough, choose 1,000, right? Or 5,000, but not more. And you will not change that amount for the next 6 months, even if you double your money. Like जैसे आप कहते हैं प्रत्येक डबल हो गया, बट नहीं होता है, बट अगर हो गया तो भी आप नहीं उससे ज़्यादा इन्वेस्ट करोगे। और जो तीसरी चीज़ मैं सबको रिकमेंड करता हूँ करने के लिए इज़ इन अ वीक लुक एट योर पोर्टफोलियो। तो अगर आप ये 5,000 रुपये इन्वेस्ट करते हो फॉर एग्जांपल, मेरे हिसाब से आप 3 या 4 चीज़ों में डालोगे। एक बॉन्ड ले लोगे, एक ETF ले लोगे, एक SIP ले लोगे और एक स्टॉक खरीद लोगे। ये तीनों चारों चीज़ें करके आप हर हफ्ते 10 मिनट के लिए अपना पोर्टफोलियो देखोगे, सिर्फ 10 मिनट, नॉट मोर। एंड उसके बाद आप ये सोचोगे कि ये क्यों हुआ, और जब भी आपको टाइम मिलता है गूगल कर सकते हो कि अच्छा मैंने HDFC का स्टॉक खरीदा, वो नीचे चले गया। मैंने HDFC AMC में पैसा डाला, उसका क्या हुआ। मैंने ICICI के साथ में एक बॉन्ड खरीदा, उसका क्या हुआ। मैंने गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया बॉन्ड खरीदा, उसका क्या हुआ। तो अगर हम ये ऐसी चीज़ें देखेंगे, आई थिंक दीज आर द ओनली थ्री थिंग्स टू डू। सो जस्ट टू रिपीट, लर्न, invest one amount per month for the next 6 months, and then spend 10 minutes looking at your portfolio. Do this for 6 months, and like my school teacher told me, he said, आप बास्केटबॉल जाओ, हर दिन खेलो, आपकी हाइट बढ़ेगी, तभी आप जाके बड़े हो जाओगे। So I got my answer very early in life that my money is not going to double till I make an effort to starting to do the right thing. And I think that's the value on which we build Paytm Money, Pritesh. Over to you.
आई थिंक अरुण, फ्रॉम आपको बोलते हुए सुनकर मुझे एक चीज समझ में आई कि सब जगह घुमा फिरा के बाद कंसिस्टेंसी पे आ जाती है एंड पेशेंस पे आ जाती है, राइट? इट्स नॉट अबाउट क्विक रिजल्ट्स। लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स, मतलब आई रन एन एजुकेशन स्टार्टअप कॉल्ड फंक्शन अप, वहां पे भी हमने यही देखा है कि लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स पीपल आर सीकिंग रिजल्ट्स कि मेरी ये जॉब लग जाए, मेरी वो जॉब लग जाए, मेरे पैसे 2 गुने हो जाए, मेरे 4 गुने हो जाए। अल्टीमेटली इट्स ऑल अबाउट enjoying the effort and मतलब patiently working towards results, right? वरुण, एक क्वेश्चन है, एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन है अराउंड मनी दैट आई वांटेड टू टॉक टू यू अबाउट, व्हिच इज अगेन क्वेश्चन दैट वी गेट अ लॉट, इज सो हाउ डू रिच पीपल इन्वेस्ट देयर मनी? कोई पैटर्न है क्या?
I think I would not say rich, I would call experienced. If I may slightly change your question, Pritesh, with your permission. एक आपने सही बात बोली कि देखो एक्सपीरियंस बहुत एक कर्व होता है, तो एक्सपीरियंस्ड इन्वेस्टर्स मेरे हिसाब से एक पैटर्न फॉलो करते हैं विच इज़ वेरी विजिबल, राइट? तो मैं अगर बोलूँ ये अपना इन्वेस्टिंग यूनिवर्स क्या है, वी हैव स्टॉक्स, यू हैव ETFs, यू हैव बॉन्ड्स, यू हैव फ्यूचर्स एंड ऑप्शंस, यू हैव म्यूचुअल फंड्स, एंड देन यू हैव SIP। और मैं म्यूचुअल फंड और SIP इसलिए बांटता हूँ, दोनों सेम है, क्योंकि म्यूचुअल फंड में आप लमसम कर सकते हो और SIP कर सकते हो, दोनों कर सकते हो। Right now, if you were to look at this and say, hey, what is the pattern? I believe there are three clear indicators that an investor is experienced or not. Okay, and I think before I go to those three indicators, I would like to tell everybody who's listening to us, please forget the number of zeros in front of it. Whether you have 1 crore, 100 crores, 1,000 crores, a billion crores, whether Mr. Ambani or you're a 21-year-old who's getting started, the number of zeros don't matter, right? Because I'm sure everybody who's listening to this at least has 500 rupees in their pocket, or is having a coffee, or is shopping for a piece of cloth or a garment, or does something for 500 bucks. And I think that's the money we should talk, and the number of zeros don't have relevance. So before we get started, एक ये कर देते कि India has changed. People like Paytm Money have come on and put on your mobile phone everything that today Mr. Ambani can invest in, you can invest in yourself on your phone. So the information arbitrage is gone. So there is, Pritesh, just to tell you, nothing that a rich man or a private banking customer or a Mr. Buffet or Mr. Ambani or somebody very, very senior can't do, that a normal retail investor in India cannot also equally do and get. I think that's the greatest thing that has changed in startup. So first in your mind, please remove two things. दो भ्रम जिसे कहते हैं हम लोग जब भी आप योगा करते हो meditation or you play something, you have to remove some fears or some doubts, right? And I think दो भ्रम है इन्वेस्टिंग के कि जिसके पास ज़्यादा जीरोज होते हैं वो ज़्यादा अच्छी इन्वेस्टिंग जानता है या उसके पास एक्सेस होता है, नॉट ट्रू. सेकेंड नॉट ट्रू इज इन्फॉर्मेशन आर्बिट्राज कि आपके पास एक ऐसी इन्फॉर्मेशन है जो दूसरे के पास नहीं, वो खत्म हो चुका है. नाउ लेट्स कम डाउन टू व्हाट आर द थ्री पैटर्न्स आई सी विच इज योर ओरिजिनल क्वेश्चन प्रितेश.
But
पैटर्न
before
नंबर
this, what you're
हाँ.
saying is access and quality of access. ये तो पूरा generalize हो गया, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would go ahead to say not even generalized, but I would say equalized, right? Today, and I'll give you a great example. Today, a customer, most HNI have bonds in their portfolio. Half of the portfolio is in fixed income because they want capital guarantee. Today, on Paytm Money, you can buy a 100 rupee government bond at one click for 39 years and secure your interest rate at 7.5%. Why would somebody not do that? That was in India privilege for the very rich. Now that is available for every person. What is 100 rupees? But you have to have the education to do it, right? So that's what I was saying. I think the equality of access, equality of information, equality of cost, so it's cheap, is for everybody. So the only person now you can literally blame for not investing or not investing correctly is only yourself, right? And I think that's the greatest achievement our government, our regulators have done. So back to your original question, Pritesh, which is, hey Varun, बताओ यार क्या पैटर्न होता है एक रिच का. तो तीन चीजें होती हैं which I think are very very important, and I want to change the word rich to experienced. Pattern number one in my mind is what I call asset allocation. I think everybody realizes that all professional investors, all big fund managers, all normal people like me and many people on this call, they're doing something called an asset allocation. What's an asset allocation? If you have 100 rupees, how do you split it amongst different assets? How much goes into real estate? How much goes into gold? How much goes into equity, into ETF, into mutual funds, into SIP, into bonds? These are the 6, 7 categories that are available for people. Into fixed deposits of bank accounts, into savings account. ये आपके हो गए 8 ऑप्शन. इन 8 ऑप्शन में आपको कितना परसेंटेज देना है. अब नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आता है, यार वरुण ये तो बहुत अच्छा है लेकिन हम करेंगे कैसे, किस में 20, किस में 10. My first standard answer to everybody is the answer lies in question 2, which people do. But my normal default answer here, if you're worth personally for let's say 1 lakh rupees, please take 2,000 rupees and split it in everything. Possible? Possible. Why not? In 2,000, 3,000 rupees, you can split everything in India today. So people will say, वरुण 2,000 रुपये में 2 बेडरूम अपार्टमेंट तो नहीं मिलेगा लेकिन आपको रीट मिल जाएगा. रीट इज बेसिकली a real estate investment. So you can today technically do an asset allocation. So step number one is please at least write down the assets on a piece of paper on an Excel sheet and write down within it what is the percentage of your assets that will go there. For example, do as an Indian, you want to have assets of international investments. Do you want to have exposure to America? Do you want to have exposure to Apple? Okay, do you want to have exposure to Google? ये अच्छा क्वेश्चन है, उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा देर में बात करें. बट आपके पास 7 to 8 असेट क्लासेस हैं, उसमें आप परसेंटेज डिसाइड करते हो. सेकंड आप करते हो रिस्क रिटर्न, या कहते हो व्हाट्स योर रिस्क एपेटाइट, which is the second thing all professional investors, all experienced people learn to do, or all rich people, everybody I think understands how to do it. It's a very very simple thing. Ask yourself. I give, for example, मैंने प्रीतेश को 100 रुपये दिए. क्या अगर प्रीतेश मेरे से मांगता एक दिन एयरपोर्ट पे, यार वरुण मैं ना थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम में हूँ, मुझे 100 रुपये चाहिए. हाँ ले लो प्रीतेश 100, नो प्रॉब्लम. प्रीतेश एक और बार एयरपोर्ट पे आया, वरुण मुझे ना अब 1 लाख रुपये चाहिए. प्रीतेश आप 1 लाख रुपये ले लो, कोई बात नहीं, आई नो हाउ टू गेट इट बैक फ्रॉम यू. Then Pritesh came to me one day and said, Varun, can I get 1 crore from you? I'm like, sorry, Pritesh, I can't help you anymore. What does that mean? That is risk return allocation or my risk appetite versus Pritesh. Similarly, for your investments, you have something called a risk appetite. What does it mean? It means that if I put 100 rupees in, for example, Reliance stock or an ICICI equity mutual fund or Government of India bond or fixed deposit, or let's say Mirai FANG ETF, which is an ETF focused on international assets, and so on and so forth, or sovereign gold bonds, and so on. So if I was to put my money here, and for whatever reason the market goes up and down, will I be in trouble? So for example, I put 100 rupees in Reliance stock, and Reliance as a company collapsed. So my stock is now worth 80. What happens to you? 80 आपके 20 रुपए में आपको बहुत फर्क पड़ा, तो आपका रिस्क एपेटाइट बहुत कम है. अगर आप कहते हो कोई बात नहीं मैं वेट कर लेता हूँ बिकॉज ये पैसे तो मुझे नहीं चाहिए थे, माई पर्सनल कैश बैलेंस दैट आई नीड फॉर मेडिकल इमरजेंसी, फॉर लिविंग माई डे टू डे लाइफ, फॉर टेकिंग केयर ऑफ माई फैमिली, फॉर हैविंग पार्टीज, फॉर ट्रैवलिंग, फॉर डूइंग टूरिज्म is with me, then your risk appetite can be higher. Correct? So what happens is you define per asset a risk appetite. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एफडी में क्या रिस्क एपेटाइट रहेगी? कोई एपेटाइट ही नहीं है, एफडी आपको वापस मिल जाएगा. सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड में क्या रिस्क एपेटाइट है? कोई एपेटाइट नहीं, यू विल गेट योर मनी बैक. Stocks में there is a risk. Mutual funds, in equity there is a risk. Futures options very very risky. So you don't put all your money into a very very risky asset. सही है? So what does that mean? आप पहले एसेट लिखोगे एक पेपर पे, उसके बाद एसेट एलोकेशन करने के लिए आपको रिस्क एपेटाइट चाहिए. So you can then choose, let's say we have 5 assets that you're investing in and you do 5 divided by 100, 20 per asset. Done. Now, let's say that 100 rupees is your total savings. Do you want to put all that money into an asset that is plus minus zero? Okay, let's take the example. A lot of people were talking about crypto in between, saying crypto is a great asset class. I think crypto is it's a very interesting asset class. And for Indians, it became illegal. But let's say that it was legal in India. It was a very risky asset class. Everybody knew it from day zero. So if you put all your life savings, then your asset allocation and risk management is wrong. But if you took 1% of your wealth and put it inside, let us say something as risky as option trading or international funds or an unregulated product, or give it to your friend and who told you you'll double it, then your risk appetite is managed. So I think somewhere you need to start thinking asset allocation and risk management. So these are the two things they do. The third thing I think is very, very simple, Pritesh. I know first two concepts maybe are slightly complex, but the third one is very, very simple, which I call it extremely simple. It is the mantra I've been following in my life is income minus savings is equal to expenses. एक और बार रिपीट करता हूँ, income minus savings is equal to expenses. It is not income minus expense is equal to savings. So the day you think like that, I think fundamentally as a person, if you do these three things, asset allocation, risk management, income minus savings is equal to expenses, you become what you would call rich or experienced.
So I think to summarize very quickly, what you just said was that um, as an experienced investor, people are able to decide the assets that they want to invest in, which is largely based on their risk calculations and their risk appetite, right? And what you invest or what you save has to be on a higher priority versus what is left behind as a disposable income for expenses, right? I think
Absolutely,
that was a
absolutely.
brilliant summary on financial wisdom, financial. I think that was a very quick masterclass on finances कैसे मैनेज करें अपने, राइट? वरुण, बट आई नोटिस्ड आपने बात करी ग्लोबल मार्केट्स की भी थोड़ी सी, तो मैं ना एक चीज रिस्क की बात करी, मैं एक चीज व्हाट कम्स टू माय माइंड इज दैट जैसे एक रैंडम ग्लोबल या करंट इवेंट है कोई सा, एंड हाउ डज इट इफेक्ट द मार्केट. फॉर एग्जांपल आई गिव एन एग्जांपल. जैसे कनाडा इंडिया का भी एक रो चल रहा है एंड वीजा एस्केलेशंस एंड वीजा कैंसिलेशंस पे अराउंड बहुत बात चल रही है. मोदी एंड जस्टिन ट्रूडो दे हैव कम इनटू, they have come face to face, right? How does something like that impact the stock market or impact someone's investments?
I think good question. I would take, let's say, as an example, any international investing method, right? Take example. For example, I believe most investors, like 98%, have most of their assets allocated for long term. Okay, so in my mind, 98% of investors should have 80% of their assets allocated for long horizon or long periods. Okay. Second, I'm a very strong believer in equity because I think अगर आपको एफडी में पैसे रखने हैं, बैंक में पैसे रखने हैं, आपका इन्फ्लेशन ही खा जाएगा उसको, तो यू आर एक्चुअली बिकमिंग पुअरर बाय द मंथ रादर देन रिचर. So let's talk then what is the asset that you can invest in and make it a bit more practical. तो अगर आज आपको इंडिया में इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टिंग करना है, देयर आर ओनली टू वेज. You go directly and invest in a stock. So there are some companies which allow you to directly buy Apple, Google, etc., etc. In my mind, bad route out because the cost of INR conversion to USD, then running a USD remittance, opening an LRS account, and investing directly in USD and carrying a USD risk plus an underlying stock risk plus all these geopolitical risks is a lot of risk in your portfolio. एंड यूर स्टार्टिंग मिनिमम थ्रेशोल्ड, क्योंकि आप आईएनआर को यूएसडी में कन्वर्ट करोगे और जब वापस लेके आओगे एक और कन्वर्जन करोगे, प्लस आप फीस दोगे बैंक को और ब्रोकर को, सारा लगा के आपका 100 रुपये 94 से स्टार्ट होता है.
Hmm.
So you're already 6% down. Now Even to break even, you have to earn 6%. Then to make, let's say, 20% return on that, you will at least have to make 10 to 12% return. Now that's very, very difficult at a scale or at a size till you get lucky. Okay. But how do you do it? So that's route A, which is direct investing. Route B is ETFs. In India, there are tons of international ETFs, and Pritesh, we've done that on Paytm Money. There's a whole section of international ETFs. A lot of AMCs have it, and ETF is nothing but an exchange traded fund. कुछ नहीं होता है उसके underlying आपके stocks होते हैं जो international stocks होते हैं. And for example, I take an example. It's called Mirai FANG ETF. FANG is its top 10 stocks: Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, and so on and so forth. Right. These 10 stocks are bundled, and they have an allocation. So depending on how all the 10 stocks do together, you get an exposure. This is a better way to invest in my mind, Pritesh, because of three, four reasons. A, your cost of investing is only 0.4, 0.3% as compared to 6%. Point one. Point two, आपका underlying risk management automatically AMC कर रही है. आप एक एप्पल में इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर रहे हो बिकॉज ऐसा हो सकता है, एंड आई एम जस्ट टेकिंग एन एग्जांपल, मे बी एप्पल वाज अ कैनेडियन कंपनी, ऑल ऑफ अ सडन द स्टॉक प्राइस may change because for Apple, this was an important business model, right? Not true. The example is wrong because Apple is American and has nothing to do with the recent political events. But sometimes in life, for example, many things can change. The other country can have a price increase or decrease. They can have inflation. So it's always good to automatically diversify. So an ETF allows you to automatically diversify. तो अगर आपको इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टिंग करना है, which I think is a good thing to do, you should think about doing it as ETFs. Point one. Now let's say you have a domestic portfolio. थोड़ा रिवर्स कर लेते हैं. You have an Indian portfolio and आपके इंडियन स्टॉक्स हैं, इंडियन म्यूचुअल फंड्स है, उसका इंटरनेशनल इवेंट्स पे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? If there's a big international event, it does have an impact. Okay, all international events like COVID had an impact. Like the current Americans trying to increase their interest rates is having an impact on the Indian markets. When they decrease, it will have an impact. See, these are all very complex things. मैं सब लोगों को एक ही चीज़ बोलता हूँ यार, make money work harder than you instead of doing the reverse until you're a professionally, financially qualified person. So the best thing to do is buy and hold for long term. Do your SIPs, do your mutual funds. These events will happen all the time. The world is in a washing machine. The world is changing faster than ever. Technology is pushing the boundaries. Mankind is pushing. You can't keep track of all this. So, as a retail investor, which is 98% of people, what I would tell you is, hey, look, these international events, you should read about it. You should know about it. Okay. For example, personally, I have an investment in a Chinese fund. Okay. It's called Edelweiss Greater China Fund of Fund. It's a domestic AMC selling a exposure to Asian markets. Okay. So I put some money in it. अब जब से चाइना विच इज द लार्जेस्ट कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट ऑफ द मनी, उसमें थाईलैंड है, बाकी कंट्रीज भी हैं, बट द लार्जेस्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट, एंड दिस वाज स्मॉल इन्वेस्टमेंट फॉर मी, आई थिंक आई हैव less than a few, less than a few lakh, I think, maybe less than a lakh. My investment is now minus 30%. Why is that? Because the Chinese economy has really collapsed after COVID. So my investment is lower. But look what worked for me, Pritesh. My asset allocation on that is less than 0.5%, whatever. बहुत ही कम है. क्योंकि मुझे कभी समझ नहीं आया कि यार मैं ऐसे एसेट क्लास में कैसे इन्वेस्ट कर सकता हूँ, जो मुझे नहीं समझ आया. But then I trusted an AMC, and Edelweiss does a very professional job, and I still respect them for it. So I've kept the money. But I need that money maybe 10 years from today. तो मैंने 10 साल के पर्सपेक्टिव से इन्वेस्ट किया. 10 साल में छोटी छोटी चीज़ें होती रहेंगी, एंड आई थिंक वी विल हैव टू कंटिन्यू टू live through it. But yeah, whenever an international incident happens or something very big happens, please do three things. A, review your portfolio again. B, please read. And C, if you have a professional manager, ask him, or if you've invested in a mutual fund, enjoy your life.
Yep. I think smaller things, like you said, smaller things, छोटी छोटी चीजें होती रहती हैं. And stock market, and especially investing is a long term game, right?
Correct.
I think Varun, I think एक चीज और की लास्ट 2-3 सालों में ना, जैसे आपने रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स की बात करी, बहुत सारा फिनटेक मार्केट और पार्टिसिपेशन ना बहुत इवॉल्व हुआ है, राइट? आई डोंट थिंक किसी ने भी एक्सपेक्ट किया था कि, फ्रैंकली मुझे पता भी नहीं है कि इट्स सेफ एनीमोर, क्योंकि अवेयरनेस एंड कैपेबिलिटी बिल्डिंग ना क्या हुई है क्या इस रेट से, एक पहले तो ये क्वेश्चन उठता है, ठीक है? एंड अगर नहीं हुई तो फिर किसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी? लेट्स नॉट पुट इट इन द हैंड ऑफ द एंड यूजर कंप्लीटली, राइट? क्योंकि स्टॉक्स में फोमो है, ग्रीड है, इन सब चीजों से, मतलब देयर इज अ होल सेट ऑफ कंसर्न्स देयर कि स्टॉक्स में फोमो, ग्रीड, इन सब चीजों से कैसे बचें.
Look, I think last 3 years have been fantastic for India. Let's understand that अगर कैपिटल मार्केट इंडिया का जैसे ग्रो करेगा, कैपिटल मार्केट का पर्पस क्या है? एसेट एलोकेशन होता है, कैपिटल एलोकेशन होता है कंट्री लेवल पे. अगर there's something very famous Gujarati saying, "Bhav Bhagwan che," right? Which is the price of your stock in the market is the Bhagwan. That's the price, right? तो स्टॉक मार्केट का प्राइस होता है बहुत ही अच्छा प्राइस होता है क्योंकि एक रियल टाइम आपको अपनी वैल्यू मिल जाती है. So it's the best thing that can happen to India because it allows us from a capital market perspective to allocate very precious resources to the company that deserves to get that money. Very simple. Okay. Now, is it a good thing? Yes. Did the retail join the party? I think they did. There was a party happening for the last 30 years in India. I think the rich became richer and the middle class and poor did not get the same access. 5 7 years back, the government started to change it. SEBI started to change it. We saw the impact of all the last 10 years of government hard work in the last, I don't know, post COVID. It just took off because everybody was ready. Payments was done, Aadhaar was done, digital was done, mobiles were there, data was there. All the recipes. Sometimes it just needs a spark to come together, and unfortunately, it was a medical event like COVID. But minus that unfortunate part, I think it was great for Indian capital markets. So, it has been just a fantastic, phenomenal set of people who have joined. At Paytm Money, we've benefited from a business perspective, but so have many other companies. But I think my biggest happiness is today I have one investor in every single pin code of India, at least one, right? Which is a phenomenal approach given that we are completely working on one app, right? And we've done about 300 million transactions. So it's not something small. Now, let's talk about, which was your question, saying, hey, Varun, responsibility sirf user ki nahi hai. I am absolutely with you, right? I think people like Paytm Money have a very important role to play. As much does SEBI, the government, other competitors, and the user himself. But I want to talk about 3 4 things that we've done because I think it's important. So we do a bunch of education. All through this session of mine, you'd have heard about education, education. Because for me, यार मुझे एक ही काम करना है, लोगों को सिखाना है, पढ़ाना है. If they're grateful enough, they will come and trade and invest with me. If they're not, they'll go elsewhere. But at least they'll go as better swimmers, right? So, what have we done? So, we've done master classes, which we regularly do. These are paid classes, very, these are not expensive paid. These are 99 rupees, 499 rupees. They're physical and digital. And the idea of doing that is that people can learn. A lot of people prefer physical. A lot of people love to do digitally, right? We've done at least, if not anything, I don't know count, but maybe 50,000 plus people have attended these sessions across our different formats, right? These are paid sessions, and the reason I charge is because I believe if somebody pays me 99 rupees, he will give full attention for 8 hours. It's really just for the sake of making the person recognize that he or she has paid, which I love, right? In Indian consumer, once they pay 99 rupees, they own you, and I love it. I love when my consumer says, "Sir, class में ना मुझे मैंने आपको पैसे दिए हैं, I therefore own you. You have to deliver." I think it's a great, great feeling. 99 rupees, you don't make profit because these classes are 50, 60 people, right? So this is not for profit, right? This is to teach people. Our costs are far higher per student. It will be in thousands, right? But I think the objective for me is that people invest in learning because it's the one thing that you will stay with you for the next 40, 50 years. So if you can't put even some small money to your learning, and money is part A and part B's time, right? So that's we do master classes. The second thing we do is we do a lot of free events on Twitter, Instagram contents. If you follow us on either of the three, you will see so much coming to you that all you need to do is follow and read. The third thing we do is we've got something called a community running, so where you can go and ask a question and people can answer back to you. So it's a community of people asking each other. So it's the third thing that works. Fourth thing that we do is a lot of people actually call us or write to us saying, "Hey, I didn't understand what just happened." Right? So you can't imagine the number of we call it customer service tickets, but they actually 92% of all the customer service requests we get are actually educational issues, right? So what's happening is they're learning step by step. Every time they buy a stock and they sell it, they're like, "Oh, I understood that my money doesn't come today; it comes tomorrow." So the minute they sell a stock, they expect कि profit हो गया, ATM type में debit card डालूंगा, पैसा बाहर आ जाएगा. But then they say, नहीं 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 वरुण आपने मेरे पैसे ले लिए, right? But when we talk to them and tell them, "Sir, SEBI का rule है, आज आप stock बेचोगे, आपको कल पैसा मिलेगा." Oh, now we understand, no problem. So I think there's a whole set of learning which we do on our side. But yeah, so these are all the things that we do. And the last thing I think we are planning to do, we started experimenting, is multilingual. It's my firm belief that the next biggest change in the capital market space in India is to go away from English. I think it's one of the biggest things India needs to change is why are we making everything in English? I think we should have it in Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Gujarati, Manipuri, and so on and so forth. People should speak the language they want, and finance should speak the language back. Why is finance a very, very elitist, English speaking uh, industry is beyond my understanding. But what I'm glad is every time I hear our current government, I hear our regulator, and you hear people like me, you will notice that this is something that's being worked upon.
If you enjoyed this, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe and share your thoughts, reviews, and the guests you want. Join our group in the description and दोबारा मिलते हैं next discussion में.